My name is Valerie Morris. I'm the Public Information Officer for Snyder ISD, and we have Mr. Murphy, our principal. We have Mr. Gregory, our assistant principal, and we have Ms. Pinkerton, the Dean of Academics, and wearer of a lot of hats as well. So I want to welcome all of you, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right in if that's okay. All right, so we're in the second 6 weeks, barely. We're almost out of it. How are things going at Snyder High School?
We think things are going great. I mean, this Thursday will be the conclusion of the second 6 weeks. And, so far we're off to a good start. Students are doing great. They're asking questions. They're working hard in class. Our extracurriculars are doing well. So we're very pleased with the start we're off to.
That's great. I think everybody is relieved to kind of have our regular activities back into the routine of life in high school, especially for our high school seniors, for sure.
I think so. I think we're relieved to be kind of back into a normal routine. We're not having to spend as much time contact tracing, but we're being very careful in every aspect, from keeping the classrooms clean and working with students that are sick, and just trying to make sure all of our students are taken care of. So
absolutely. We're in a very fortunate position right now. We actually have 0 active cases recorded for our district, and assuming all stays well throughout the weekend, we will resume our regular school visitation policies, which in the high school, we've had things open, and we've had pep rallies, we've had basketball game, or not basketball, volleyball. Basketball's about to start, volleyball games and all of that in the gym. So we've experienced some normalcy so far.
Yes, and it's gone well.
Yes, absolutely, it has. So we appreciate everybody's cooperation and patience with that as we get back to normal. So can you tell me a little bit about grades? Because we're about to have our second 6 weeks wrap up. For parents that maybe have not been quite comfortable checking grades, or they're a little bit confused about how often they're entered, can you tell us about how often grades are entered? Should they check Skyward? Should they check Schoology? What advice would you have for parents who want to keep tabs on their children's progress?
Okay, I'll tackle this question, and then I have these two to help me cover anything that I miss. But grades should be entered at least once a week. Most teachers kind of get in a routine, and usually Thursday or Friday are the days that they enter grades. We ask that they enter 2 or 3 grades per week, just depending on when you're preparing for a test, or how many assignments you can get done in our weeks, because we're kind of on a strange bell schedule. But we want them to enter 2 or 3 grades a week, every week. We're on a 60% of our grades we categorize as minor grades. So those are like daily assignments, quizzes, homework grades, just some of the smaller assignments that kind of prepare them for the test or for mastering the material. And then 40% of the grade is based off major grades, which are usually tests or big projects.
Okay, and as far as checking those grades, Skyward, Schoology, what do you recommend is best for high school?
Most, teachers are putting their assignments in Schoology still. We still maintain that as kind of our learning management system, and being able to get to students that are absent for various reasons, whether it be sick or school related. At this point, it's actually quite refreshing to have that ability to get to those students, whether they're in your classroom or not. So that Schoology is still happening. So teachers put assignments in Schoology. Parents, if you sit down with your student, which they, I'm sure, love at the high school, there is a grade report tab right up at the top. And within that grade report tab, it goes through each one of their sections of classes, and it will allow them to check to see if they've got everything turned in, that there's a submission for every assignment that needs a submission. You'll be able to see that there. We do not show the grades in Schoology because Skyward is our official grade reporting location. So parents all have a login to Skyward. They also can go back and look at the videos. They can get a login to Schoology themselves. I just have found it easier as a parent to sit down with my student and look at that grade report tab in Schoology, and I know exactly what assignments haven't been turned in and which ones have turned in. So as a parent, get your login from either our counselor's office would probably be the best place if you do not already have the login credentials to Skyward. And within Skyward, you'll be able to see each one of your students' grades per section and what their actual average is in that class up to date. We encourage teachers to sync from Schoology to Skyward once a week, and just to make sure that those grades are current. And if there is any questions, obviously contact the teacher, contact one of us, and we'll be more than happy to check on the situation. Maybe the teacher's been absent or something like that, and we need to follow up to verify that. So that is the easiest way to check grades for your students. But remember always, Skyward is that official grading report. So what it says in Skyward is what is going on the report cards and the transcripts.
Okay, and that's helpful, and something that I know Schoology caused a lot of growing pains during an already difficult time for our teachers. And I think, though, it's one of those things that out of COVID has been helpful for those students that are absent, because they can still jump right in. I know if my kid has been absent and they're not sick, but perhaps they had a school-related absence or something like that, I say in the evening, hop on Schoology, let's see what you missed, and we'll make it up.
It's very convenient.
It is. Our students, well, our coaches and our sponsors, when they go on a trip somewhere, it's easy for them to say, make sure you bring your Chromebook, and they can have their students access any assignment they need to, and provide time for them to get it done so they don't get behind while they're on a school trip.
Absolutely. I'm sure they love that too.
Oh, yes.
So there's really no excuse to get behind. I know some kids are ill and they're not able to work, but that work is there and available for when they are able to do it. They should be able to get on. And we still have those Wi-Fi access points as well. If a student does not have internet access at home, that's on our website. And then there's opportunities through after school tutoring or Pride Hall if they need to log in to internet to be able to access their assignments. So as far as support, we'll talk about that. What if a student isn't doing well in class? How is the school helping? And what can parents do to help their student if they're struggling?
Okay, so as far as parents helping, I think communication is the key to helping their students. So, I mean, if they have a concern with a classroom or a class, they need to email the teacher, and hopefully they get a timely response. If not, then they can contact any one of us, Mr. Tate, Mr. Gregory, myself, a counselor, Ms. Pinkerton. We're all available. And I know I try to respond within 24 hours. In most cases, we get that done, but they should just communicate with us. They can also talk to their child when they come from school and ask what they have, what they need to get done. They can get on Schoology or Skyward and see where they're at and try to prod them and make their child, at least get there and attempt it, and then help them, form the questions they need to ask and make sure they're communicating with their teachers. So I think that's one way. I think, and then encourage them to go to tutorials, because we provide tutorials often. We have Pride Hall 4 nights a week, Monday and Wednesday. It's 4:15 to 5:15. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's later in the day, from 6:30 to 7:30. And then each core subject area has a morning and afternoon tutorial that is scheduled. And then any elective class, they'll just talk to their teacher. They'll make arrangements to meet with them. So I think there's plenty of opportunities for help, but they'll just communicate. And I think it's part of our job to make sure that we're staying on top of grades and reaching out to those students. So I know that we track grades quite often and call students in and see where they're at or what they're doing or why some assignments are missing. So hopefully between all those avenues, we can try to keep kids on track.
Absolutely. And those hours for Pride Hall are on our website. If you go to the Snyder High School section of our website, go to families and students, and you will see Pride Hall there. So you can see all of the hours that are available, which is great, offering morning and afternoon. That way, if it's students in athletics or has some other job after school or something like that, they can work around it and get accommodated.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so another question that we had come in is about MAP testing. So does the high school conduct MAP testing? We've been talking about it on our other calls, webinars that we've had with the primary and intermediate school. So tell me about MAP testing at the high school.
Okay, at the high school, we do MAP testing with math and English especially. And kind of at the high school, we do 3 rounds of it. We do a beginning of the year test where we kind of get some basic information of where our students are at, and then kind of how to tackle where their weaknesses are and prepare for the first semester of the school year. And then we do a middle of the year test to see what kind of growth we have. And then we really use that information to kind of form true RTI groups where we can focus on student where there's gaps in learning and where students are struggling, where we can focus our instruction. And then we use the last MAP test to kind of prepare us for the end of course test. I'll let Travis kind of speak a little bit more on it. He works with it just as much as I do, and he can give probably some more detailed information.
Okay, so MAP is a little different than like state testing because state testing is based on a standard and the curriculum, but the MAP testing is all about growth measurement. So it's difficult to understand the concept of that after their first MAP test, the beginning of year, if that's the only data point that we have. It makes a lot more sense after they have the middle of the year or subsequent years of MAP testing data, because it will show a line graph on the reports that we get that shows the students' progress and growth. And it will even rank them a percentile score for their achievement level, but also for their growth. And so that's what we're really focusing on, is the growth. No matter where the students are, we want them to grow. So we spend a lot of time looking at that data. The best way to access that information is probably through the student's teacher, because they'll know that student the best and they can give them the report as pertains to their subject. And like Mr. Murphy said, that's what we've done here at the high school, is the English department and the math department are using MAP data right now.
Okay, so the best way to get that information is just to email or send Parent Square to the child's math or English teacher, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And what do you do with those MAP scores? Are there, you mentioned response to intervention. Can you tell me a little bit about what that involves and how it relates to MAP?
Right. So comparing the beginning of the year test with the middle of the year test, well, definitely we use the beginning of the year test to kind of set a baseline of what we need to cover and what students we need to focus on in different areas. But the second test, when we compare it to how much growth they've made in each area, that really gives us some true information of how far our students are coming, how quick they can learn, what objectives to focus on, what areas they really need help. And then we form small groups. We have a couple of RTI teachers that will work with them closely. So that maybe they're working with the students inside the classroom, or they may pull them out, work on specific areas that a certain group of students are weak in. So we kind of use it. We use it for the students that are kind of at the bottom that are really struggling to get to where we need them to be. And then we also look at where, some of the students that are in the middle, if we can push them to that next level. So there's different types of RTI, and we use that MAP data heavily to figure that out.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good information and allows a really customized plan for each student, it sounds like.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about UIL eligibility. That is probably going to be a hot topic that comes up as we go into the second 6 weeks. Hopefully it's not an issue for too many kids, but can you tell me about that? What is no pass, no play, especially if we have families that are new to sports or their children participating in UIL, and how long does that stay in effect?
Okay. No pass, no play. At Snyder High School, we apply it to every program there is. So not just UIL, but it's our CTSOs, our FFA program, TAFE, any program, any event, theater, it applies to them. So no pass, no play. The first 6 weeks of school, everybody's eligible as long as they have enough credits from the previous year to participate. At the conclusion of the first 6 weeks, which is the first report card, any student that is not passing at that time, they're ineligible for 3 weeks. And I say 3 weeks, there's actually a week grace period in there. So they become ineligible the following week, at the end of the first week of the second 6 weeks. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but there's a week grace period in there, and they become ineligible at the end of the school day on that Friday. And then they have 3 weeks until the next progress report. And at that progress report, the students are allowed to gain eligibility. They won't lose eligibility at that time. But if they are now passing all their courses, they can regain eligibility. And again, there's that week grace period. So they'll become eligible at the conclusion of the following Friday, that next week, if that makes sense. So at the end of each 6 weeks, there's an opportunity to lose or regain eligibility. And then every progress report, a student can regain eligibility if they're ineligible.
Okay. And again, that's why all of the above that we discussed, talking about how to check your child's grades, communicating with your child's teacher to stay on top of that, rather than the last day of the 6 weeks, get a surprise that your child is ineligible to play. Students should probably know about where they are, though, within their grades. Do you feel like most students are aware how to check their Skyward and things like that?
Most definitely. We have conversations with students all over the place, Ms. Rosas and I, and the counselors in checking their grades, and they most definitely know how to check their grades. And we rely on that as they, are in high school. It becomes important for them to take ownership in their education and making sure that they're doing what they need to be doing to be successful with their classes. And so we definitely make sure that they know how to do that. Another thing that Mr. Murphy just said, and I probably just want to make sure because there's a misconception, you can become ineligible because of one class, but to regain eligibility, you have to be passing all of your classes. So he made mention of that, but we have a lot of students that have misinformation on that, or a misconception that, well, they're passing that class that they were failing. Why can't we go ahead and start participating? But they're failing another class. So that's definitely something that's a hard concept for our high schoolers to understand. You may become ineligible because of one class, but you have to regain eligibility and be passing all of your classes, not just that one. So that's a misconception. And then also dual credit classes, that I say this to my dual credit students all the time, but it can't be said enough. They do not factor into the no pass, no play. They have other consequences for not passing those classes, obviously. But those classes in particular do not affect eligibility with dual credit or honors classes. So with that being said, we want all students to be passing regardless. And so that just want to make sure that misconception is there and cleared up.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I just want to remind our attendees, if you have a question during the webinar, please feel free to ask it. We'll be glad to answer it while we are here together, or you can always email us too. You can contact the campus. If you're not quite sure who to contact, you can always email questions@snyderisd.net, and I'll be glad to get you to the right person to answer your questions. So one thing that's been woven throughout this time together today is communication. That's just essential to everything that we do, whether it be your child's grades, whether it be support that they need, whether it be the assessments and how they're going to do maybe on standardized tests or just every day during school. So what is the best way to get in contact with a child's teacher?
Okay, I think there's a couple of ways. I mean, email, of course, always gets to the teacher. And a lot of our teachers use ParentSquare. I know I use ParentSquare quite a bit, and there's several parents that they prefer that form of communication with me. So I communicate quite a bit through ParentSquare with certain parents. But I would say if they would just email or get on ParentSquare to contact, and then, if they don't hear something within a 24-hour period a day, then they should contact one of us and we can get back to them as quickly as possible. But we do want to communicate often, and we like parent support, want them involved as much as possible with their child's education. So if they would just email, they can call at any time and ask for one of us. But there's plenty of ways to get a hold of us.
Absolutely. And when you have multiple kids on secondary campuses, and between all of my students that I have, my children, we have, double digits as far as teachers. And sometimes it's hard to remember which teacher goes to which child. So in ParentSquare, if you click on your child's name, you'll see a list of all of the teachers that are associated with that child, and you can click on message and message them directly. So that's handy if you're juggling quite a bit of kids and teachers, and you want to make sure you get their message to the right person. So that's something that I like about it personally. Okay, and reasonable time. So what you had mentioned 24 hours earlier, is that the expectation across the board as far as what you would like, as far as a reasonable response for a teacher to respond to?
I think 24 hours is very reasonable. I know teachers have a busy schedule during the day, so there's some days where teachers don't have a conference period at all. So they may not check their email until, after 4:30 or 5, and then if they're a teacher or a sponsor or something else, or if they're doing private hall, they might not see it till 7 or 8 at night. So if they respond, if the email came in at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning, they might not see it for 12 or 13 hours later. So I think you need to give them a little bit of time to read the email and respond accurately. So I think 24 hours is sufficient.
Absolutely. And we want to remember that we want our first and foremost, the responsibility is to be teaching the children. So if there's an emergency or something that your child needs to know, or you need to relay to that message to that teacher, the best way to get that message is to call the campus. Don't expect for something to get to the teacher immediately, right when they send a message through Parent Square or email. Okay, let's talk about anything. Do y'all have any other things to add about communication?
The only thing is we do want to communicate, so we want to help students and parents. So please communicate with us as much as possible.
And we even work really hard in the cube, specifically with students, emailing teachers and asking questions, not
That's
just the
right.
parents. We want the students to have open communication with their teachers just as much as the parents. And it's easier for them to set up an email and type it correctly and send it to that teacher to ask questions to help the student understand. It's better to not just sit and think something's going to get handled and taken care of. To get that open line of communication is really important with our students as well as our parents. So students have been worked with quite a bit on sending an email, because that is something that we have found they struggle with. And so we work with students to help send those emails, even if they attach us. I've had students attach me. If they're asking a teacher about a grade, they'll attach me on the email as well, mostly so that I can monitor how they're responding to the teacher or how it's going. But we offer that support as well to students that are needing to ask teachers questions, and they've never done that before. So we want them to have that open communication.
Absolutely. And I appreciate y'all doing that. And she referred to the CUBE earlier, which, if you're not familiar with that, that's the College and Career Center.
Yes.
And their goal is to help kids get college and career ready. And part of that is communication. That's a huge part of it. And I know I've even sent my own son in there for guidance to how to reach out to somebody, to a teacher. And that's a life skill that our kids have got to get down. So I appreciate everything you all do in there for that. Okay, so let's talk about, speaking of college and career prep, the FAFSA. We've had several meetings. We've had an online Q&A. We've had 2 in-person help sessions. Tell me about what's different about FAFSA this year. And if parents have a senior, or ultimately we're all going to have seniors, what do we need to know about the FAFSA?
So we had a FAFSA night last night, and we were super excited. We had 37 people there. We had a lot of success, a lot of congratulations. And let me tell you, if you've never been to a FAFSA night, we hoop and holler. I mean, like, seriously, because when you have that completed FAFSA screen, nothing feels better for the evening, I promise. So we also do giveaways and stuff during FAFSA night, because you're taking time out of your schedule and we're working together for the success of your student at the end of the day. So we had a really great night last night, lots of success. FAFSA in general is a free money, basically, is the best way to put that. And every single student, according to TEA, for a high school graduate of 2022, will fill out the FAFSA. That is something that is not necessarily the easiest task in the world. So we have provided a couple of FAFSA nights. We're possibly going to have a third one as well, just because of the success that we've had. And it's easier to do in person. Everybody's situation is different when it comes to their financial situation, and whether their students going to college or a vocational school or laying out a year. But TEA says everybody will have the experience of filling out the FAFSA. So Ms. Rosas and I do operate under, we would like for our seniors to have experience. At least if they're not going to college right out of high school, or they're going to go ahead and go into the workforce, we want them to experience filling out a college application, experience filling out the FAFSA, experience taking the TSI and hopefully passing it, so that they don't ever have to worry about it again. But the most important thing is, when they do decide, or their life changes and they're allowed or able to go to college or to WTC, to a community college, then they're at least thinking in their mind, oh, I have filled out an application before, or I've gone through this process before, so they're not completely in the dark. I think that is TEA's mindset behind this, is making sure all of our students leave high school with some preparation of what life might throw at them once they walk out our doors. So we definitely agree with that. So we're trying to do our very best with all seniors to make sure that they have a FAFSA completed. We will be going into government and economic classes on Monday and Tuesday of next week, making sure your student has an Apply Texas account, just setting up the profile, making sure they understand what it can be used for. They're also going to set up their FAFSA account for the student, go through the steps, and then hopefully the student will be able to help the parent know what to do. If not, of course, we will be right there to help parents fill out the rest of the FAFSA. And then the third thing that we're going to have seniors do on Monday and Tuesday is really fill out what we call an intake form, an information form. We want to know, what is your senior's idea of graduation? When I leave high school, what are my plans? And so those are the things that are coming up on Monday and Tuesday as we start to go on this adventure with your student. I mean, we're already at the end of October. The year will just seemingly go faster and faster as we progress. So it's definitely fun. And to see seniors accomplish the FAFSA last night and their parents, that's one step closer. And we're really happy to get to be there and celebrate that with them.
I had no idea that it would be so much fun.
Oh, yes, we have fun. We absolutely have fun.
That's great. Well, I look forward to it then. Well, and something too is, parents, you could probably sit and do this form at your house if you wanted to, but it sounds like you all provide a lot of fun, but also you can make the process go a lot quicker. You can make sure that everything is correct, because sometimes you do have to go back and make corrections. So why not take advantage of help that's being offered so that you can get through it as pain-free as possible?
Absolutely. We actually have people that came last night from WTC. We had 3 individuals here with us. They're a really great support system for us. And then also an individual from TSTC. So just right up the road in Sweetwater. So we have lots of help there, and they have seen different scenarios, because even after you fill out the FAFSA this one time, your student is still going to be in college next year and the next year. So therefore, you have to fill out the FAFSA every single year. So getting the experience and doing it right the first time will help make the subsequent years go a little bit easier for you as your student goes through college, because you do have to fill it out every year. Financial things change every single year. And to be eligible for scholarships, you have to have the FAFSA filled out. So you really can't get away from it. So I think it's better just to go ahead and get it filled out, get it taken care of, and hopefully students qualify for the free money. We would love our students to have that opportunity here at Snyder High School.
Absolutely. And that's just another life skill of adulting that you need to have, is filling out applications, because it never stops. So is there anything else that y'all want to add? Things that you'd like to mention to parents?
I think communicate with us. Something always heavy on our minds is student participation. We have a lot of students that are doing well. They stay more focused on their grades because they're working to stay in football or to stay in theater. So we want more students involved. So if your child's a child that does not participate in an extracurricular event, talk to them about joining something. We have plenty of room in all of our programs for all students, and we'd love to see every one of our students doing more than just going to class and going home. We want them involved. As a parent, I wanted my kids to get up early, come home late, tired, and eat their cereal and go to sleep. I think it helps them in all aspects. They're happier, their grades are better, they're learning a lot more, and they're getting some lifetime experiences that they can take into college, into their adulthood. So talk to your kids about getting involved at Snyder High School.
Absolutely. And if your kid is a little bit shy and isn't sure what they want to get involved in, again, communicate, call the school. And I'm sure any of these folks on the screen could rattle off 20 or so opportunities that your student can join and get involved. And I agree. I think that makes a huge difference. And I think that's a huge advantage that Snyder offers, is having so many different activities. There really is something for everyone.
Sure.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. And at any time, if you want to watch this, if there's a parent that that you feel like may need to know some of this information. If you want to learn more about FAFSA, if you want to learn more about how to log on to Schoology and check your kids' grades, how to get into Skyward, we have assembled a page that has all of these videos and recordings on it, so you can watch it at any time. That's at snyderisd.net/QA. And that's where you can find all of those videos. You can also go to the Families and Students tab on our website and you'll see it there as well. So encourage you, communicate. That's exactly what we're trying to do here, is communicate with all of you. And we hope that we can continue to keep those lines of communication open so your child can be successful. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.